Welcome to Not Just Any Book Club, the book club episode where we talk about a book about a machine that makes your dreams come true.
Yeah, we're talking about one of my favorite authors, Ursula K Le Guin, and her novella, The Lathe of Heaven, which is one of her more popular books. Seems to be, I don't know, her top few have about the same amount of popularity. Except maybe, this is a tangent. Wizard of Earthsea is maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, yeah, Ursula K Le Guin, one of my favorite authors. I personally think she should be up there with the likes of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and
Okay.
Now this is one of her more
Yeah.
sci-fi novels for sure, but her fantasy I personally really love and think should be up there with those big boys, you know.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my first Ursula K. Le Guin novel or work. And I've heard about the Wizard of Earthsea. I just haven't gotten around to them yet. I've also heard many great things about her, mostly about the Ghibli adaptation that didn't turn out so well, and she didn't really like it, but that was for good reason. But I have not read anything else by her. But I've read this book for the book club. Shall we?
So it's not true that you've not read anything else by her. We read The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas
Oh,
for this
wow.
podcast, which if I remember correctly, you liked. It was good.
I did.
It's probably my favorite, maybe my favorite short story ever. I think it's really, really good.
Okay. I do remember that. That was a while ago.
That was a while ago. But yes, that's her as well. So you have read something else by her. Just
Okay, all right.
no long form writing.
Okay, until now. All right. Shall we get started with a summary?
Sure thing.
All right. The year is 2002 in Portland, Oregon. America is suffering from overpopulation, starvation, and poverty and climate change. George Orr is a crushingly ordinary man that is hired by the maniacal but kind-hearted psychiatrist William Haber, who utilizes a machine called the Augmenter to enhance Orr's dreams, which have real-life consequences that somehow are always consistently justified, but only he can remember the previous realities. Even though Haber tries to influence the dreams of the net positives of society and creating new realities, something always goes awry. Haber begins to become more delusional, while Orr would rather not continue with these dreams. Orr hires a lawyer named Heather Lalachi, however that's pronounced, who becomes convinced after seeing one of these sessions as she looks out the window and sees a nuclear apocalypse with an alien invasion on the moon. Orr escapes after having more consequential dreams, and Lalaki, however you pronounce that, finds him in a remote cabin and is delirious due to the lack of sleep. Or contemplates suicide, but Lalaki suggests a dream to make Haber less maniacal, which Orr agrees to. However, she also suggests that aliens are no longer on the moon, which instead that causes them to invade Earth and causing a greater apocalypse due to a volcano. Or returns to Haber to find for more guided dreaming, but dreaming of a world without prejudice removes the Loki from the world, and instead places her with a gray version of her that Orr agrees to marry. Haber switches places with Orr due to his resistance to dream of a truly better world after studying his brainwaves. Lalaki and Orr escape the building but realize that Haber is destroying reality. He ultimately returns to the building to stop Haber's abuse of the Augmenter, but leaves behind Grey Lalaki. In the final reality, Haber has gone almost comatose, or is alive and lives a quiet existence. And Lalaki is also alive but has no memory of what happens. But eventually, Orr does try to rekindle the relationship. End of book. So, Pierce, what did you think?
It it wasn't my favorite Le Guin of what I've read, but I thought that it was pretty good. I thought it was enjoyable. It's pretty breezy, pretty quick to get through. So it's not like it was a huge time sink for something that I thought was just pretty enjoyable.
Mhm.
Um, And yeah, it kind of leans into some of the messages you can see in other Le Guin works. So pretty interesting stuff. I think she's got a good mind for these kinds of things, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what was your impression? I kind of already know it because we talked
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah. I
bit
know.
about it.
Spoiler alert. I am indifferent towards it. I thought it was just good. It was very well written. I was very impressed with Le Guin's prose, but I have a feeling that this wasn't her best work, which may or may not be a hot take, but it was. I can recognize that she's a great writer and that these concepts probably are better in a different book. I think the main problem that I had was the fact that this was a science fiction story instead of a fantasy, because making a machine that can change dreams and alter reality, it's a bit too much for my suspension of disbelief. I know that.
I think you misunderstood the machine, to be honest with you.
Did I really?
Yeah, a
You,
little bit, a little bit. The machine is supposed to help him, like like sort of the you know how you can there's some external stimulus that can affect people's internal dreams and internal
hmm
mindsets and things like that. And yes, it goes quite a bit further than I think anything that we see in real life. But
hmm
the idea is there's sort of a mystical, really unexplained phenomenon with his dreams. His dreams are the things that are affecting reality, and the
hmm
machine is just affecting what his dreams are. Um, the machine has nothing to do with the reality morphing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you wait until now to tell me and make me a fool in front of
I
everybody here.
didn't realize until you said it like that. I didn't realize that's what you were saying. Now looking back,
Well,
I'm seeing even your intro. You kind of
all,
misunderstood.
all these red flags, all these red flags. Okay. Well, I mean, point still stands. It the logical leap. Well, now my interpretation of what was going on, I'm still gonna stand by it. I'm still gonna really stand by it that the leaps in logic about the reality altering stuff, and how it somehow mystically always justifies, like the example, the pink poodle that comes
Yeah.
into the world.
I
Um, leap in logic.
Yeah, I think that's kind of more of a concern with the format than any of the actual content
Mhm.
of the book. Like it's just so short, right? It's
Yeah,
just so short for
and hand waves everything. Yeah.
uh sci-fi and relatively complex ideas that it tries to tackle. I think it does pretty well for what it is, but
Mhm.
it's I mean, I guess I could see like yes, it hand waves everything because it's trying to sort of get to the
Mhm.
point. Um, I think also one of the points it's trying to make is that there is not really a scientific explanation for everything.
Mhm.
Um, there are a few ideas that this book tackles that Le Guin often sort of tackles through her books, but broad philosophical ideas. The most common one is utilitarianism.
Mhm.
She covers that in a lot. I'm not going to talk about that right this second. What I wanted to talk about was positivism. I don't know how often positivism is used in her books. Probably more so the sci-fi than the fantasy, and I read more of her fantasy than her sci-fi personally. But this idea that sort of everything can be based in sort of empiricism and science and the scientific method, and everything can be properly understood. And the psychologist is sort of the figurehead for a lot of these ideas that Le Guin is trying to critique. The psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist or whatever you want to call him, he's sort of this figure that is morally trying to help, but in a way that I think Le Guin wants us to see as bad.
Mhm.
And yeah, positivism is, I think, one of his main things that you can understand all these things and that um, sort of empirical observation and measurement can not only can you not only explain everything, but that's what will solve all human problems through understanding Orr's situation with his dreams through sort of empiricism. Um, and I think Le Guin is trying to critique that like there's not really going to be this hard scientific explanation for everything that goes on. That we're not going to be able to have that for every single thing under the sun.
Hmm. And whenever he does try to change reality, he can't change human nature, is what I'm the impression that I get. Like when he tries to rid all racism from the world, he ends up making everyone gray, but then it
Yeah.
also still doesn't remove the prejudice and everything that's still inherent in humankind, apparently.
Yeah, he gets rid of race as a on accident as a way to get rid of
Yeah.
racism. Um, yeah, so there's sort of a calculus that he does that he can't really account for every single thing, every situation, every possible variable. So he doesn't account for actual differences in why people have prejudices. And so when he says get rid of racism, or tries to manipulate Orr's
Hmm.
dream to get rid of racism, it doesn't change people, right? Because there's the variable of the actual differences that people are seeing that gets changed instead. Similarly, right, when he
Hmm.
tries to get world peace and causes an alien invasion being planned from the moon that gets the entire world to unite, right? You can't account for every variable in pushing for human welfare, and I guess that's something that Haber sort of um, misunderstands.
Mm.
Uh, I guess I did that without talking about any of his philosophy, but I'm sure we've got plenty
Yeah,
of
we
time
got
for that.
plenty of
So
time. Yeah, yeah. I it doesn't really. I wish it cut. The book is not long enough to really delve into those ideas enough for me to be like, yeah, that's totally what. Um, like,
I think
I don't
that
think it's supposed to go as deep as I
yeah,
wanted to.
I I think that Le Guin, at least in this book, sort of wants you to be able to decipher those things for yourself. I think they're
Mm,
present, right? Like his philosophy,
yeah.
um, the Haber's philosophy about the world and how he should act, and he's a behaviorist, for instance. You're kind of expected to, I think, come into the book with this knowledge if you want to get that much out of it. I think it's an enjoyable enough book without any
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that. But I think Le Guin sort of expects you to come into it with some philosophical backing already,
Hmm.
some understanding of behaviorism and psychology and so on.
Yeah. Even with the Or, because Haber seems proactive in trying to improve the world, and Or seems more inactive in trying to improve the world because he tries to avoid this responsibility that he has. I'm not sure exactly what she was trying to comment on, but I thought that was kind of interesting because it's like he can't control his dreams, and he's trying to help the world, uh, or is trying to help the world by kind of avoiding this. He even secludes himself. He debates killing himself. I don't recall why he does. I'm not saying that like Dan or you really should have done it, but he chooses not to. I don't remember the exact reason why, but he knows that he's making the world a little bit worse
Yeah.
off.
Well, so I we talked a little bit about whether or not we should bring this up before, just because neither of us know that much about it. Taoism, right? That
Hmm.
idea. I do know that a big part of it is sort of balance, the idea of balance, and accepting sort of the complexity of things.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I would say that's kind of what she would say, or maybe not. Maybe let's not focus on exactly what she would say, but instead what is
Hmm.
being said in the work. Maybe
Hmm.
we're supposed to kind of get that or is or needs to come to terms with sort of himself, right? He needs to
Hmm.
impose a sort of personal balance, an acceptance of the way things are. And maybe things can be better in some specific ways, but the sort of like, I don't know. Again, I don't know that much about Taoism, and so I
Yeah.
like I don't want to like put my foot in my mouth about it, I guess. But
Yeah.
he definitely appears he's definitely kind of just going off of the little bit I do know. He's an unbalanced person, right? He
Hmm.
can't quite balance himself. And I guess what I would say about not only Orr, but about anyone who wants to make any change in the world is that you should find an internal balance, right? You should know who you are and sort of figure out your life and your place in the world and accept things as they are and understand things as they are before you go out and change anything. And I don't know if that's the message with Orr specifically, but that's just the way that I kind of look at
Hmm.
things generally,
Hmm.
and taking the little bit I do know about Taoism and sort of putting that on that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It. I like to think that, like, even if it wasn't that positive to the world, I just don't think he would be willing to even go be a proactive force in it.
yeah,
Because even then, I think by the end, he just kind of resigns to living in this altered reality. Um, I think an alien. I think this is one. That's what the aliens mean by the word Iaklu. When they say it to him, I'm probably misremembering something greatly over here, but he kind of just resides in this new alter reality. I think at the end, he works at a baking shop with an alien. He doesn't seek to change anything. He doesn't seek, even though he's the only one that can remember previous realities. He's quite content. Um, he he accepts Gray Lalaki for who she is. After, because in the previous realities she was conceived because of the civil rights movement, because she's half black, and her mother was black, right, and her father was white. Whatever the gender was, they had a baby together, and um,
yeah.
she's mixed.
I
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, yeah. You understand? Yeah, she's mixed, and or is willing to accept her for who she is, with this new look of her being gray in this new different world.
Yeah. And I think like kind of going back to what we were saying before, accepting things as they are. Um, if we're looking at kind of the worldviews, and we'll get into some of the other parts of Haber's worldview, especially utilitarianism, I think that's super important to bring up in a lot of Le Guin's work that I've read.
Hmm.
Um, Quite a few, she comes back to it a few different times from the stuff that I've read of her. I want to read more of her stuff, but
Hmm.
utilitarianism has been a thing that's come up a few times. We'll get to. I want to get back to that, but I think sort of it feels like in the book or is sort of right in some ways, right? Like, am I
Yeah.
imagining that or is sort of correct? Um, And I would say it's not necessarily because he doesn't want any change. It's
Hmm.
sort of because he accepts things the way that they are and he accepts the ways that things should change over time,
Hmm.
sort of process of them
Hmm.
changing,
Rather than force it.
rather than forcing through some big philosophical idea, this all encompassing idea, um, forcing it through to change it rapidly.
Hmm. Yeah, that
Basically,
is.
the world is complex, and we
Yeah.
need to accept that we're not going to be able to see and understand everything, and there's going to be unintended consequences if we you know,
try to make the world a better place and get, but forcefully through unnatural means, like through what this is happening
yeah, or
through. Yeah.
if we not even yes, obviously through unnatural means, but to sort of take that theme into the real world,
Mhm.
um, I think it's more about how um, the worldview is very like Haber's worldview is very unrelenting
Mhm.
and not nuanced, and I think
Mhm.
that is the thing that is being critiqued primarily.
It's
That
black and white.
how yeah, how black and white Haber views the world as like this is the way it's got to be, and so now that this unnatural fast way of changing things is being presented, Haber is quick to use it. Meanwhile, you know, or who has all these issues um with his life and Portland and the way he's living it, uh he sort of accepts things as they are and doesn't want to just, even if he could control his dreams, I don't think he would want to change things so extremely.
Mhm. I even think that now that we're going over this, Lalac, her existence being made comes from conflict and strife, and to create another human being, I guess, is another way of looking. Because this doesn't even register with Haber that this could even possibly be a thing. That I guess beauty can come from misery. No, no misery, but like human conflict is probably a better way
Mm-hmm.
of putting it. Because again, I think now that I'm remembering correctly, now the father is black and the mother is white. Please don't fact check me on this. I just let me believe this. Um, they did it as an act of rebellion, and it produced her. And I think the parents separated soon after. So, but Lalaki was still able to become a successful lawyer, I assume, and be able to forge her own path through strife. And this wouldn't be a thing that Haber would approve of, or register, or even think about. Um, and it has this. Actually, I also really like the romance of this book. That's another positive I'll say. Loki in general is just a really interesting character through all her iterations. So I think she is almost as a foil to Haber. Um, and I think she does try to make the world a better place as well through Or, because while Haber tries to forcefully do it through the augmenter and force these suggestions, and he knowingly does it, and he knowingly knows the consequences and does it over and over again. When Laki does it, while Or is going to sleep in a cabin, she makes a very simple suggestion for Haber to not be so maniacal, and she tacitly wishes for aliens to stop invading, being on the moon, and that causes greater consequences for the aliens to be on Earth.
Yeah.
Um, there's something there. They're foils.
Yeah. That Lalaki is sort of the desire, I guess,
Hmm.
in most people, even people who don't have as strong ideological beliefs
Hmm.
for things to change, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, they still the desire for rapid change, even if you don't have strong ideological beliefs like Haber. Um, yeah. Hmm. Um, do you have anything else before I bring up utilitarianism? I think it is
Um,
important.
One of my favorite parts of the book was using the Beatles song, with a little help from my friends. I know that I'm always someone that's interested in using a song's lyrics into a work of art. Is there anything? Because I tried to really figure it out. Um, I get by with a little help of my friends and trying to see how that kind of relates. It's been a while, but how it relates to the themes of the book.
Isn't it just like isn't that song about sort of like there's
Beating.
drug usage in that song, right? It's
Yeah,
like relaxing
it's to be
and
cruel
getting
to my wife.
by
Yeah,
with your buddies, like you
yeah.
know, the not a community necessarily, but like you know, a group of
Hmm.
people, you know, chill out, take some
Hmm.
drugs, hit your wife a
Yeah,
little bit, I guess,
yeah. I think John
and
Lennon
hang
wrote
out
that.
with your yeah, John Lennon definitely wrote that line. And hang out with your buddies. You know, I guess I would just say it's kind of like you know love relationships sort of accept the world for what it
Oh
is,
yeah.
get by with a little help from the people around you,
Hmm.
um, and just sort of accept things as they are for now. Find some
Yes.
balance. Um,
And I think he listens to that right before he conjures up Lalaki in a room, I believe, and then sees her gray, and then
mhm.
says, "Hey, let's get married." I think that's what happens. So yeah. Um,
um, Go ahead.
there was also another word, air perani, whatever that word is. I don't have anything. It's said by the aliens. I don't think it's. I was not able to dive deep into it. It's not like a motif that gets repeated, but um, he says it right after in chapter 9, 10, and 11 over and over again. Whatever that word means is your guess. Your guess is as good as mine. Any thoughts on it? I got nothing.
um, I'm trying to remember what it means, what the context of it was. Um,
I don't have anything.
you don't have anything about it. You're just gonna bring it up and not
Yeah,
and
bring it
not.
up, like play hot potato with it, because I did have it down in my notes somewhere, but then again, I didn't write anything under this bullet point.
You just wrote it down with
Yeah, I'm like,
nothing.
yeah. So that's up to you guys to figure it out in the
Yeah, think
comments, maybe,
think
please.
about that one. Think about that one. Um, I mean, it has to do with his dreams, right? That's what it had to do with, or
Everything has to do with
something.
dreams.
I guess technically, I don't know. I was trying to remember what the context was, but I can't. All right. Well, so I guess I'll talk about the utilitarianism for Haber now. I mentioned he was a behaviorist, right? Idea that you
Hmm.
can kind of predict and control human behavior through
Hmm.
inputs. Um, that humans are responding to stimuli in the way that they act, and then positivism, where you know empirical reality is all you need to better the world and to understand everything. Um, you don't need, to understand anything about mystical stuff. Everything has a scientific explanation, yada yada. Uh, the biggest thing about why Haber is trying to use Orr, right? Outside of just
Hmm.
helping him, fixing him, trying to understand what's going on, he's trying to use him because of his utilitarian philosophy. He doesn't actually try and help Orr pretty much at all. He does, through his machine, sort of have him dream about getting a cabin, right? So I guess he helps him a little bit in that case. But the thing that's really hurting Orr from the beginning is his dreaming. His
Hmm.
dreaming, changing reality, is what is causing him so much psychological stress. Um, and what causes him to break the law right at the beginning of the book.
Hmm.
Uh, and it all circles back to sort of this idea of utilitarianism. Haber doesn't care about Orr's emotions or what little things might change or how he might hurt Orr, right? Because Orr stops going to sleep at night because he's afraid that his dreams are going to be too vivid and he's going to make changes that aren't controlled.
Hmm.
Um, he doesn't care about the ways that he might be hurting Orr because he's helping society. And he also doesn't care about the little unintended consequences we've been talking about, making everyone gray, the aliens up on the moon, so on and so forth, because all of the issues that he's focused on are getting solved, right? Less people are dying because there's less war
Hmm.
on Earth.
Very narrow.
There's less prejudice, right? Less prejudice, at least based on race, because there are no races, right? So these unintended consequences, I guess what he's basically measuring them against is because the idea of utilitarianism, if you didn't know, is the idea of, greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. The needs of the
Hmm.
of the many outweigh the needs of the few. those kinds of things. So the many versus or in the few. So or's psychological stress doesn't matter because we're helping people. And then on top of that, the side effects are much less damaging in Haber's mind than the changes that he has made, right? And so the
Hmm.
world is a better place. Even though I would say most people, including Le Guin, would say you lose something when you don't have all the different sort of races and cultures on the planet.
Hmm.
Yes, sure, people will be not as awful to each other in
Hmm.
certain scenarios, but you lose something there, right?
Hmm.
Um,
I'm guessing. Hold. That's where the name of the character comes from. George Orwell, 1984, probably dystopian.
yeah. Well, the very beginning is dystopian. Also, I think the one thing where Le Guin really misses here is talking about overpopulation. I have like almost zero concerns about overpopulation. Most people who are focused on economics
Yeah.
don't have much concern about overpopulation because we've done a lot of studies and betting in the field with
Mhm.
between people about what shortages and different things, and
Was that something?
it's just never panned out.
Yeah.
um
Was that something that was cleared up in the 80s or whenever this book was made?
well, I mean,
Prob-
it's still not cleared up today. There are still
oh,
people who believe that overpopulation is a serious problem. And I guess locally it can be. So like Portland, it's possible however many
hmm.
million people in inhabiting Portland might make overpopulation a serious problem. But I can't. In the book, is it like overpopulated everywhere? I can't remember off the top of my
Yeah, I
head.
think there was also climate change was happening as well. It was just,
Yeah,
yeah, really bad. I
I
mean,
don't know.
I'm assuming there's other factors, I guess.
Yes, yeah, there were other dystopian factors that I think were more accurate, but
Artistic license.
over yeah, I let overpopulation go in fiction because it's fictional and stuff, but
Yeah.
I just thought I should mention that's I generally like Ursula K Le Guin's takes on things. I think they're interesting. I think she's very
Hmm.
thoughtful and she delivers them very well.
Hmm.
But if she's worried about overpopulation, that's one thing I think that she's probably wrong to worry about.
Yeah. Hmm. That's the one part of suspension of disbelief you can't get over like I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except that I misinterpreted the book entirely.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I don't know. I think Ursula K. Le Guin, and maybe this is a problem. I feel like she definitely sort of assumes that her readers, she writes in some cases, I think, for pretty young audiences, especially like the Wizard of Earthsea. I think you
Hmm.
give that to a very young reader and they'd be able to understand it well. um, but something like this, I think, to get everything out of it that she wants you to, you do kind of have to come into it with some understanding about the philosophies that at least Haber is following. Obviously, we don't know too much about Taoism, which is what Orr is sort of focusing on. But yeah, I think this is kind of for an older audience. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I know you middling, but
Yeah.
you also
It's
misinterpreted
good.
it, so I don't know.
Okay, completely. No, I mean, I think it was good. Like, even if my oblique misinterpretation of it was maybe, I mean, I don't think it affected it too much. I mean, okay, that was the primary reason I was going to like, Piers, I can't suspend my disbelief enough. But in general, like, once I kind of let that go, it was good. Um, I mean, I like the characters. Lalachi or Lalaki, however you pronounce her name, was probably the standout character. I wish there was more of her, but she kind of gets sidelined. Everybody
Well,
else
and
gets
it's
kind of
like
started.
170 pages or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like pretty short, but
yeah. Oh, I thought the ending was cool too. Just like how the world was getting destroyed by Haber's interpretation of reality.
yeah.
That was interesting. I didn't hate
Yep.
the book. I don't know. I really liked it. Just didn't love it. But I am very
I
curious
think
actually
yeah, I
about the
think
other
you
books.
should give Le Guin more of a shot. I think you should read some
Yes,
more of her stuff because
I definitely will.
she's very talented. I
Yeah,
really like reading
her
her
prose
a
is
lot.
really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
just she's a very good writer. Um, okay. I I don't have anything else to say. Um,
Yeah.
okay, I actually, but we're gonna add a little bit of a new segment. So, out of 10 stars, Pierce, what would you give it? Just to sum up our thoughts.
Out of 10, um, I think I would give this s- a,
Oh,
a light 8, maybe like a little bit under 8 if I was giving
okay.
decimals, but I'm not going to because that gets complicated.
Yeah.
Um, little bit under an 8 maybe. I think it's very very good. I think
Mhm.
that if she wrote an expanded version of this, I think it could
Mhm.
be excellent. But for what it's trying to do as a novella, about 8, I think sounds right.
Yeah. Giving it a solid 7 over here, so not too far off. And I think again, I think the prose really elevates this into what I would maybe have dismissed as just a pulp novel, but it's not really that. It's more there's more philosophy as now the more we discuss it. It's becoming more apparent to me, and it was just really well written. Malachi, great character, good time. I wish it was longer. That's all. 7 out of
Yeah.
10. Very strong
Yeah.
7.
All right. Um, Please give us a like, rating, comment, subscribe, follow us on whatever platform. We're doing a lot more on YouTube than we're doing in the podcasting space now. But I mean, no matter what platform you're on, we appreciate you for listening all the
Hmm.
way through to this point. You can find us on social media, Blue Sky, right? Blue Sky,
Yes.
Twitter, and the app formerly known as Twitter, and TikTok, not just any pod. We don't post a lot, but every once in a while you might see us on there.
Show support.
Yeah. Um, and you can join us next time. We're going to be talking about Sweet Smell of Success. Got pushed because of our Last of Us episode,
Which is doing really well.
which is doing pretty well. So check that out
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it. Next time will be Sweet Smell of Success.
And goodbye, Prometheus.